Welcome back to Tina Romance Library, where powerful alphas fall hard, and the women they underestimate change everything. Every story here is complete, immersive, and emotion-driven. No cliffhangers, no rushed endings, just full romances you can sink into. So if you love possessive alphas, strong heroines who don't beg, slow burn tension, emotional payoffs, and stories that actually finish, you're in the right place. I need you to join the pack right now by subscribing. Leave a like if you enjoy immersive romance, and settle in because once the story begins, we don't stop until the ending. Now, let's get into it. I wasn't supposed to feel it. Not yet. Not ever. If the moon goddess had any mercy left in her ancient bones. But there it was, that pull, that undeniable tug in the center of my chest, like someone had hooked a line straight through my ribcage and was reeling me in, slow and deliberate and absolutely merciless. The mating moon assembly. Every unmated wolf in the Shadowcrest pack crammed into the ceremonial grounds. Hundreds of us standing shoulder to shoulder under a sky so clear you could count every star if you weren't busy trying not to vomit from sheer terror. The air smelled like pine and anticipation, and that particular brand of anxiety that comes from knowing your entire future could be decided in the next 60 seconds. I told myself I wouldn't hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope got you hurt. But my wolf, my stupid, romantic, utterly naive wolf, she'd been pacing inside me all day, whining and preening like we were about to meet our destiny, instead of just another mandatory pack gathering. And then I felt it. The bond. It hit me like a physical thing. This wave of heat and recognition that started in my chest and radiated outward until my fingertips tingled and my vision went sharp and focused. Everything else, the crowd, the ceremonial fires, the low hum of nervous chatter, it all faded into white noise. There was only one thing that mattered now. Only one person in this entire clearing that my soul was screaming to find. My eyes found him before my brain could catch up. Dominic Blackthorne, future alpha of the Shadowcrest pack. 6'3" of pure predator wrapped in human skin, with dark hair that fell just wrong enough to make you want to fix it, and eyes the color of amber held up to firelight. He stood on the raised platform with the other high-ranking wolves, his posture radiating the kind of authority you're born with, not taught. Even from across the clearing, even with 50 bodies between us, I could feel the weight of his presence like a hand on my throat, and he was staring right at me. For one perfect, crystalline moment, the world held its breath. His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw it, that flash of recognition, that split second where his wolf rose to the surface and knew. The shock that rippled across his face was almost beautiful in its honesty. Then came the heat, this burst of raw want that I felt echo through the bond like he'd shouted it. His pupils dilated, his chest expanded on a sharp inhale. And then came the denial. I watched it happen in real time, watched him shove his wolf down and rebuild his walls and make a choice that I felt crack something vital inside me. His expression went cold, controlled. The face of a future alpha who'd just been handed an inconvenient problem. When he spoke, his voice carried across the clearing with preternatural clarity. That alpha tone they all learn, the one that makes even your bones want to obey. I, Dominic Blackthorne, future alpha of the Shadowcrest pack, reject. He paused. 1 heartbeat. 2. His eyes were still on me, and I swear to the moon I could feel his wolf clawing at his insides, fighting him. Reject Sierra Nightshade as my mate. The words landed like physical blows, each one a slash across skin that would never scar, because the wound was too deep, too fundamental. This wasn't pain in my body, this was pain in the space where my soul connected to his. This sucking void where something beautiful was supposed to grow, and instead there was just nothing. Emptiness. The bond didn't break cleanly. It tore, ragged, and screaming. The clearing erupted in whispers. Shock, pity, some poorly concealed satisfaction from the she-wolves who'd been angling for the future alpha's attention since we were all old enough to understand what a mate bond meant. I didn't cry. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to fall to my knees, to beg, to plead with him to take it back. My wolf was howling inside me, a sound of pure anguish that I felt in my bones. But I'd been raised in this pack. I knew how it worked. Weakness was blood in the water, and there were sharks everywhere. So I lifted my chin. I met his eyes, those beautiful, terrible amber eyes, and I let him see that he hadn't broken me. Not completely, not in any way that mattered where anyone could witness it. Whatever was shattering inside my chest, whatever was bleeding out in the hidden parts of me, that was mine, my pain, my devastation. He didn't get to see it. But here's the thing about mate bonds. Even rejected ones, they don't lie. I could feel him through that torn, ragged connection. Feel the war happening inside him even as his face stayed perfectly, cruelly blank. His wolf was going absolutely feral, fighting him for control, demanding he take it back, fix it, claim what was his. The tension in his jaw, the white-knuckle grip he had on his own self-control that wasn't indifference. That was a man at war with his own nature. And his eyes. Moon above, his eyes wouldn't let me go. Even as the pack beta stepped forward to carry out protocol, even as the judgment was passed and my fate was sealed, Dominic watched me, tracked every breath, every micro-expression, like even rejection couldn't make him look away. The guards came for me quickly. Standard procedure for a rejected mate removal from the assembly. Quarantine until the bond settled enough that my presence wouldn't drive the alpha wolf insane with confused instinct. 2 wolves I'd grown up with, their faces carefully neutral as they gripped my arms. Don't touch hair. The growl came from the platform. Low, dangerous. Dominic hadn't moved, but every wolf in the clearing felt the alpha dominance radiating off him in waves. The guard's hands loosened reflexively. Everyone froze. The beta leaned in, whispered something. Dominic's jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind even from 15 feet away. He gave a sharp nod, and just like that, the moment shattered. The guards tightened their grip and started walking me toward the pack house. Away from the assembly, away from him. Every step felt wrong, like I was walking in the opposite direction of gravity, fighting against some fundamental law of nature. I kept my head up, kept breathing, kept moving, but I felt him tracking me, felt his eyes on my back like a physical weight, heavy with things he wouldn't say and couldn't take back. Then Marcus reached out. Just a friendly gesture from another wolf I'd trained with, his hand extended to steady me as I stumbled slightly on the uneven ground. Nothing romantic, nothing threatening, just basic pack courtesy. The snarl that ripped from Dominic's throat was pure animal. Every head whipped toward the platform. The future alpha had taken 2 steps forward before he caught himself, his entire body vibrating with barely restrained violence. His eyes were full wolf now, glowing amber in the firelight, fixed on where Marcus's hand hovered near my elbow. The beta grabbed his arm, held him back, and I understood something in that moment that would haunt me for weeks to come. He'd rejected me, publicly, decisively, carved out the bond with his own words, and left me bleeding in front of the entire pack. But his wolf? His wolf hadn't agreed to anything. The possessiveness rolling off him was undeniable, primitive, the kind of jealous rage that said mine even when his mouth had said never. As the guards pulled me into the shadows at the edge of the clearing, I looked back once, just once. Dominic stood rigid on that platform, surrounded by his father's enforcers, his beta, the weight of pack politics and future responsibilities. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. His chest heaved with the effort of staying still, and his eyes, those devastatingly beautiful eyes, followed me until the darkness swallowed me whole. Why does rejection feel like being torn from something I've never had? The question echoed in my mind as they led me away, as the sounds of the assembly faded into silence, as the space where our bond should have been burned like an open wound. Because somewhere in the twisted logic of fate and wolf instinct, and the moon goddess's cruel sense of humor, Dominic Blackthorn was mine. He just didn't want to be. 3 months earlier, the alpha wing smelled like cedarwood and old leather, and that particular scent of power that clung to everything the Blackthorn family touched. I was on my hands and knees in the west corridor, scrubbing at a stain that probably predated my birth, when I first felt his eyes on me. Not the casual glance of a high-ranking wolf passing through. This was different, weighted, deliberate. I didn't look up. Servants learned early that eye contact was a privilege, not a right, especially with the Alpha family. But my wolf stirred under my skin, curious and alert in a way she'd never been before. The air pressure in the hallway changed, got heavier, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer, instead of passing by. I focused harder on the stain, scrubbing until my knuckles went white around the brush. My heart kicked against my ribs in a rhythm that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the sudden awareness that I was alone in a hallway with Dominic Blackthorne, and he'd stopped walking. That's been there for 15 years. His voice rolled over me, deeper than it had any right to be, with this rough edge that made me think of whiskey and late nights. I paused mid-scrub, still not looking up. Then I should probably work harder, sir. Silence. Long enough that I risked a glance upward. Mistake. He was closer than I'd thought, standing maybe 3 feet away, hands in his pockets in a posture that should have been casual but somehow wasn't. Those amber eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Not angry, not cold, just focused, like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve and he had all the time in the world to figure me out. Dominic, he said after a moment. When it's just us, you can use my name. I blinked. That wasn't how pack hierarchy worked. That wasn't how any of this worked. I don't think that's appropriate, sir. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Probably not. He should have left then. Should have continued wherever he was going and let me get back to my impossible stain. Instead, he crouched down, actually lowered himself to my level on the floor, and examined the spot I'd been attacking. Iron, he said, running his finger along the edge of the stain. From the old weapons storage. My grandfather had the armory moved, but the damage was already done. He looked at me, and this close I could see flecks of gold in the amber of his eyes. You could scrub for another 15 years and it wouldn't come out. Then why is it on my task list? The question came out sharper than I'd intended. His eyebrow rose, but that almost smile deepened. Because my father believes in keeping servants humble through impossible tasks. He stood, offered me his hand. Come on, I'll reassign you. I stared at his outstretched palm like it might bite me. Taking the future, Alpha's hand seemed dangerous in ways I couldn't articulate, but refusing seemed worse. I placed my hand in his. The contact sang through me like a bell being struck. His fingers closed around mine, warm, calloused, strong, and he pulled me to my feet in one smooth motion. For a heartbeat we stood there, hands still connected, close enough that I could smell him, pine and night air and something uniquely him that made my wolf practically purr. He dropped my hand like it had burned him. I'll have someone update your assignments, he said, his voice gone formal again. Then he was walking away, those long strides eating up the hallway, leaving me standing there with my heart racing and my palms still tingling from his touch. That was the first time. It wasn't the last. Over the next weeks, I started noticing a pattern. Dominic had a habit of appearing wherever I was working. Not obviously, not in a way anyone else seemed to notice. But I noticed. I felt him before I saw him, that pull in my chest that I didn't understand yet, that magnetic draw that made my skin prickle with awareness. He'd walk past while I was changing linens in the guest rooms, pause to ask meaningless questions about my work, stand too close while inspecting something that clearly didn't need inspecting. His eyes would track my movements with an attention that made me hyper-aware of every gesture, every breath. The touches started accidentally. His hand brushing mine when he handed me a new task list. Our shoulders colliding when we both reached for the same door. Him steadying me when I stumbled on the stairs. His hands on my waist for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Each contact was brief, proper, completely explainable. Each one left me burning. You're being assigned to the Alpha Wing permanently, he told me one afternoon, his tone businesslike even as his eyes said something else entirely. We need someone reliable. Reliable. Right. That's definitely why my new assignments kept me within 50 feet of wherever he happened to be at any given time. I wasn't stupid. I knew what this looked like, but I also knew my place. Dominic Blackthorne was the future alpha, destined for a mate who could strengthen pack alliances and bear strong heirs. I was nobody, the daughter of dead rogues who'd been granted mercy in the form of servitude. Whatever this was, this pull, this tension, it couldn't go anywhere. My wolf disagreed violently. She'd started responding to him in ways I couldn't control, preening when he was near, whining when he left, pushing at my control whenever I heard his voice. It was getting harder to maintain the proper distance, the respectful demeanor, when everything in me wanted to close the space between us. He was watching me more obviously now, not even trying to hide it. When other wolves spoke to me, especially male wolves, his jaw would tighten and his eyes would flash wolf gold, possessive, territorial, in ways that made absolutely no sense for someone who couldn't claim me. Then came the tea. I was organizing the library, another assignment that conveniently placed me in a room Dominic frequented when he walked in carrying 2 mugs. The future alpha of the Shadowcrest pack, serving tea like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Break time," he announced, setting 1 mug on the table beside me. I stared at it, at him. Alphas don't usually carry mugs for servants. Maybe I'm not a very good alpha. He settled into one of the leather chairs, long legs stretched out, looking entirely too comfortable. "Sit." It wasn't quite a command, but my wolf responded to the authority in his tone anyway. I sat, picked up the mug, let the warmth seep into my palms. It was exactly how I took my tea honey. No milk, the faintest hint of mint, which meant he'd been paying attention to details he had no business noticing. "Why are you doing this?" The question escaped before I could stop it. He was quiet for a long moment, studying me over the rim of his own mug. "Would you believe me if I said I didn't know?" "No." That almost smile again. Smart girl. We sat in silence, drinking tea like we were equals instead of future alpha and servant. It should have been uncomfortable. It should have been wrong. Instead, it felt like the most right thing I'd experienced in my entire life. "Tell me something about you," he said eventually. "Something real." "Why?" "Because I want to know." The honesty in those words hit me harder than any command could have. I set down my mug, trying to organize thoughts that had gone scattered and chaotic. "I don't remember my parents," I said finally. "They died when I was 3. Rogues who crossed into pack territory. Your father could have killed me too, but he didn't. Sometimes I don't know if that was mercy or prolonged punishment." Dominic's expression darkened. "It was mercy, and anyone who's made you feel otherwise will answer to me." The protectiveness in his voice made my chest tight. "You can't fight the whole pack over a servant. Watch me." And the terrifying thing was, I believed him. After that, the tea breaks became routine. Small pockets of time where we could talk without the weight of pack hierarchy pressing down on us. He told me about the pressure of being groomed for alpha. I told him about the loneliness of being packless in a pack. We never touched during these moments, but the air between us felt charged with possibility. My new assignments kept changing, always placing me near him, always giving him excuses to check on my work. The West Wing balcony that needed regular cleaning conveniently adjacent to his office. The training grounds equipment that required daily organization right where he ran drills every morning. I watched him train once, hidden in the equipment shed, and it was like witnessing violence transformed into art. All that controlled power, that lethal grace, the absolute certainty in every movement. When he shifted mid-fight, his wolf was massive and dark and utterly devastating. Beautiful. He caught me watching. Our eyes locked across the training yard, and even in wolf form, I felt that pull between us intensify. He shifted back unbothered by his nakedness in a way only an alpha could be and started walking toward me. I ran. Coward that I was, I grabbed my supplies and fled before he could reach me, before he could ask why I was watching, before I had to admit that seeing him in his element made me want things I had no right to want. The jealousy got worse after that. Marcus, a kind, harmless wolf from the engineering unit, started helping me with heavy equipment. Friendly, platonic, nothing more. The third time he carried something for me, Dominic materialized out of nowhere. "I need Sarah for a special assignment," he said, his voice perfectly level, even as his eyes promised violence. Immediately. The special assignment turned out to be organizing files that were already organized, for 3 hours. With Dominic working silently at his desk, throwing off waves of irritation that made the air crackle. "Did I do something wrong?" I finally asked. "No." Flat. Final. "Then why do I feel like I'm being punished?" He looked up from his paperwork, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole my breath. Want. Frustration. Something darker and more complicated that I couldn't name. "You're not being punished," he said quietly. "I am." I didn't understand. Not then. But my heart knew. My heart had been screaming the truth at me for weeks while my brain refused to listen. The almost kiss happened on a Tuesday. I was working late in the archive room, filing reports by lamplight because the overhead bulbs had blown and maintenance hadn't replaced them yet. Dominic found me there, shadows playing across his face in the dim light, making him look dangerous and beautiful in equal measure. "You shouldn't be working in the dark," he said, moving into the room like he owned it. Which, technically, he did. "I'm almost done." "You're always almost done." He was close now, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to look at him. "Do you ever rest, Sarah?" The sound of my name in his voice did something to me, made my wolf surge forward, made my breath quicken. "I rest. Lear." His hand came up, and I thought he was going to touch my face, but he stopped himself. His fingers hovered near my cheek, trembling with the effort of restraint. The wanting in his eyes was so naked, so raw, that it hurt to look at. "We can't," I whispered, even as everything in me screamed the opposite. "I know. You're the future, Alpha. I know. I'm nobody." His jaw clenched. Don't ever say that." We were breathing the same air now, inches apart, the tension between us so thick it felt solid. His hand was still hovering, not quite touching but close enough that I felt the heat of his skin. My lips parted on an exhale that sounded too much like an invitation. He leaned in. Time stopped. The world narrowed to the space between us, to the electricity crackling in that gap, to the certainty that in one more second, everything would change. And then he pulled back. The loss of him felt physical. I actually swayed forward before catching myself, my hands fisting at my sides to keep from reaching for him. "You deserve more than me," he said, his voice rough and wrecked. "More than this. More than stolen moments and secret meetings and a future I can't give you." I didn't understand then. Didn't understand what he meant, what he was trying to tell me. All I knew was that he was pulling away when every fiber of my being wanted him closer. "Dominic, I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the archive room with my heart in pieces, and the certain knowledge that something irreversible had just happened. I didn't know, standing there in the dark with tears I refused to shed burning behind my eyes, that in 3 weeks he would reject me in front of the entire pack. But my heart knew. My heart had been trying to warn me all along. The isolation room wasn't a cell, not technically. It had a bed, a small bathroom, a window that let in filtered sunlight through frosted glass. But the door locked from the outside, and there were guards posted in the hallway, and I couldn't leave until the pack healers decided the severed bond wouldn't drive me or Dominic into a feral state. Comfortable captivity was still captivity. I lasted 47 minutes before I felt it. His rage. It came through the bond like a shockwave, that torn and bleeding connection suddenly blazing with emotion so intense it drove me to my knees. The bond was supposed to be dead, rejected, gone. But whatever Dominic had said with his mouth, whatever formal words he'd used to sever us, his wolf hadn't gotten the message. I could feel him, feel everything. The fury rolling off him in waves, the self-loathing that tasted like ash in my mouth even though it wasn't mine. The pacing I knew without seeing that he was pacing, wearing tracks in whatever floor he was on, fighting the urge to come to me with everything he had. My wolf whined, responding to his distress even through my own pain. She wanted to comfort him, wanted to go to him, wanted to forgive him for ripping us apart because she could feel that he was suffering too. I told her to shut up. Night fell. The isolation room had no clock, but I tracked time by the changing light through the frosted window, by the meals that appeared through a slot in the door, by the gradual quieting of footsteps in the hallway outside. I didn't eat, couldn't. Every time I tried, my stomach rebelled, still twisted up in the phantom pain of rejection. Around midnight, or what I guessed was midnight, I felt him getting closer. The bond flared with proximity, that magnetic pull strengthening with every step he took in my direction. I sat up on the bed, my heart hammering, torn between desperate hope and crushing dread. He was coming. After everything, after the public rejection and the formal words and the entire pack watching him cast me aside, he was coming. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I held my breath, waited. Nothing, but I could feel him there, could sense his presence on the other side of that wooden barrier as clearly as if I could see through it. His conflict bled through the bond want and duty warring inside him, his wolf clawing at his control, demanding he open the door, demanding he fix what he'd broken. The silence stretched, seconds into minutes, neither of us moving, a door between us that might as well have been an ocean. Go. My voice came out as a whisper, but I knew he heard it. Wolf hearing didn't miss much, and he was listening for me the way I was listening for him. More silence. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. I can't. You already did. Harder now. Sharper. Earlier in front of everyone. So do it again. Walk away. I felt his pain spike through the bond, heard his sharp intake of breath. His hand touched the door. I didn't see it, but I knew. Felt the shift in his energy, the way the bond hummed with that small contact. Sarah. Go, Dominic. The use of his name was deliberate. A reminder of those stolen afternoons over tea, those moments when he'd asked me to forget hierarchy and just be two people talking. A reminder of what he'd thrown away. It worked. His footsteps retreated down the hallway, each one like a knife twisting in my chest. I tracked him through the bond until distance made the connection fade to a dull ache. Then I lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, and didn't cry. I was done crying for him. The political pressure started 3 days later. I heard about it through the guards who brought my meals, wolves who forgot that servants learned to be invisible, who talked freely in the hallway outside my door like I wasn't there listening to every word. Alara Frost, daughter of the Northern Ridge Alpha. Beautiful, powerful, perfectly positioned to strengthen the alliance between our packs. The engagement had been in negotiation for months, apparently, long before the mating moon assembly, long before Dominic knew I was his mate, long before he'd brought me tea and asked about my life like it mattered. The rejection made sense now. Political necessity, pack alliance, the future alpha doing his duty. Understanding it didn't make it hurt less. I felt the moment he met with her. The bond soured with his revulsion even as I imagined them together, her hand on his arm, her smile calculated and perfect, her wolf everything mine wasn't. Strong, connected, suitable. His wolf rejected her on sight. I felt that too, felt his animal side snarling and hostile, refusing to accept this stranger when his real mate was locked 3 floors above them. It should have made me happy. Should have felt like validation. Instead, it just made everything worse. Because what did it matter if his wolf wanted me when the man kept choosing duty over desire? They let me out after a week. The bond has stabilized, the pack healer announced, like I was a medical condition instead of a person. You may return to your duties. Return to my duties. Serve the pack. Pretend my heart wasn't shattered, and the future alpha wasn't my mate, and I hadn't spent 7 days feeling his anguish through a connection he'd tried to sever but couldn't quite kill. Sure. Easy. I went back to work in the Alpha Wing like nothing had changed. Same assignments, same hallways. Except now Dominic was there with Alara on his arm, playing the role of attentive future mate while his eyes tracked me across every room. It was torture. Alara was beautiful, I'd give her that. Tall and willowy with ice-blonde hair and eyes like winter sky, she moved with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world, who'd been raised knowing she was valuable, wanted, enough, everything I wasn't. She touched him constantly, her hand on his shoulder during meetings, her fingers brushing his arm when she laughed at something he said, staking her claim in small, deliberate ways that made my wolf snarl with impotent jealousy. And Dominic, let her touch him, let her stand too close. Let her play the role of future Luna while I scrubbed floors and changed linens and slowly bled out from a wound no one else could see. But he never looked at her. His eyes found me, always, across crowded hallways and during formal dinners and in quiet moments when he thought no one was watching. That amber gaze would lock onto me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Even now, even after everything. Alara noticed. "That servant," she said one afternoon, her voice carrying through the library where I was reshelving books. "She's always around. Is that normal?" I froze, waiting for Dominic's response. "She works in the Alpha Wing," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "She's just doing her job. Still, I don't like how the male wolves look at her." Neither did he. I felt the spike of possessive rage through the bond before he could control it. "They won't," he said, and there was alpha command in those two words. A warning. A threat. "I'll make sure of it." And he did. By the end of the week, there was an unspoken rule among the pack. Don't talk to Sarah. Don't look at Sarah. Don't acknowledge Sarah's existence, unless absolutely necessary for work purposes. It should have made me angry. Should have felt like one more way he was controlling my life, limiting my world. Instead, all I could think was that he was still protecting me, still claiming me in the only way he could, still unable to let go even as he planned a wedding to someone else. Marcus cornered me in the storage room 2 weeks after my release. "What did you do to piss off the future, Alpha?" he asked, his expression genuinely confused. "One day we're friends, the next I'm getting death glares every time I stand near you." I organized cleaning supplies with deliberate focus. "I didn't do anything. Sarah, come on. I'm not stupid. The way he looks at you. He's engaged." I cut him off. "To Alara Frost. Whatever you think you're seeing, you're wrong." "Am I?" I turned to face him, letting him see the exhaustion in my eyes. "Yes. And even if you weren't, it doesn't matter. He made his choice. The door slammed open. Dominic filled the doorway, and the rage rolling off him made the air vibrate. His eyes were pure wolf gold, fixed on where Marcus stood maybe 2 feet away from me. "Out," he growled at Marcus. Not a suggestion. An alpha command that hit with physical force. Marcus fled. Then it was just us. Dominic and me and 3 years' worth of cleaning supplies and enough tension to detonate. "You can't keep doing this," I said, proud of how steady my voice came out. "Driving away everyone who talks to me. Watch me. You don't get to be jealous. You rejected me, remember? In front of the entire pack. You don't get to—" "I know what I did." He stepped into the room, closing the distance between us. "I know exactly what I did, Sarah. I feel it every goddamn second through this bond that's supposed to be dead but won't fucking die." My breath caught. "Then why? If you're suffering, if your wolf is fighting you, if you can't stand seeing other wolves near me, why do it? Why reject me just to torture us both?" "Because loving you would destroy everything." The words came out raw, wrecked. "My father needs the Northern Alliance. The pack needs stability. And you—" His hand came up, almost touching my face before he caught himself. That familiar gesture of restraint. "You deserve better than a mate who can't choose you. That's not your decision to make. It's the only decision I can make." We stood there, inches apart, the air between us crackling with everything unsaid. His eyes searched mine, desperate and hungry and full of longing he couldn't act on. "Go back to Alara," I whispered. "Go back to your political perfect mate and your alliance and your duty. Just stop coming to me. Stop looking at me like that. Stop making this harder than it already is." "I can't." "Then I will." The decision crystallized in that moment, standing in a storage room with the man who was supposed to be mine but never would be. I couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep existing in his orbit, watching him build a life with someone else, feeling his want through a bond he'd tried to destroy. If he wouldn't choose me, I had to choose myself. "I'm leaving," I said. "The pack. I'll petition for release from my service debt." His expression shattered. "Sarah, no. You don't get to stop me." I stepped back, putting distance between us. "You rejected me. You chose duty. Fine. But I don't have to stay here and watch you marry her. I don't have to torture myself just because you're torturing yourself. They won't let you leave. Your parents' debt can be paid in other ways. There are other packs, other places where I can work off what's owed." I met his eyes, let him see my resolve. "I'm done, Dominic. Done waiting for you to choose me. Done breaking my own heart every time you look at me like you want me and then walk back to her. Where will you go? Does it matter?" He flinched like I'd struck him. "Of course it matters. You think I can just let you walk out of my life? You think I can—" "Yes," I interrupted. "That's exactly what I think. Because that's exactly what you've been doing for 3 weeks. So I'm making it easier for you. I'm leaving, and you're going to let me go." The bond flared between us, his anguish mixing with mine until I couldn't tell where his pain ended and mine began. "Sarah, go back to your future, Luna Alpha." I put every ounce of formality into that last word, rebuilt every wall he'd ever made me tear down. "I'm sure she's wondering where you are." I walked past him, out of the storage room, down the hallway. Every step away from him felt wrong. Felt like walking against gravity, against nature, against every instinct I had. But I kept walking, and this time, he didn't follow. I made it 3 days. 3 days of filing formal paperwork for pack release. 3 days of packing the few belongings I owned into a single canvas bag. 3 days of feeling Dominic's anguish through the bond like a constant ache in my chest. 3 days before the helicopters came. I was in the servants' quarters when I heard the deep thunder of rotor blades cutting through the afternoon air. Not unusual. High-ranking wolves visited all the time, arriving in shows of wealth and power that reminded everyone of the pack hierarchy. But these were different. The sound was wrong. Too many. Too coordinated. Military precision instead of casual arrival. I moved to the window, pressed my face against the glass. 4 black helicopters descended onto the training grounds in perfect formation, their movements synchronized in a way that spoke of elite training, not pack warriors. Something else. Something that made my wolf go very still inside me. The entire compound went quiet. I watched wolves pour out of buildings, drawn by the spectacle. Watched the Alpha's enforcers take defensive positions. Watched Dominic emerge from the main house with his father, both of them radiating authority and confusion in equal measure. The helicopter doors opened. Warriors stepped out. Not wolves or not just wolves. These were something more. They moved like predators, dressed in black tactical gear that screamed professional military, each one carrying themselves with the kind of confidence that came from being absolutely lethal and knowing it. And they all dropped to one knee the moment they hit the ground. Every single one of them. Kneeling, heads bowed, waiting. The crowd murmured, confused. The Alpha's enforcers tightened formation around their leaders. Dominic's expression was pure bewilderment, his eyes scanning the kneeling warriors like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Then the command came from the lead helicopter. A woman's voice, clear and carrying, with an accent I couldn't place. "We seek Seraphina Nightshade." The world tilted. That wasn't my name. My name was Sarah. Just Sarah. A servant. An orphan. The daughter of dead rogues who'd crossed the wrong territory. Except apparently, that was a lie. I felt every eye turn toward the servants' quarters. Felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. Felt Dominic's shock spike through the bond so sharp it stole my breath. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against the windowsill, trying to ground myself, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Seraphina Nightshade," the woman called again. "Daughter of Alaric Nightshade, last king of the northern bloodline. We have come to bring you home. King. Bloodline. Home. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. I was nobody. My wolf surged forward with a force that drove me to my knees. It felt like something inside me was cracking open. Some cage I hadn't known existed, shattering under the weight of truth. Power flooded through me, not the ordinary strength of a pack wolf, but something ancient and vast and absolutely terrifying. My vision went white gold. My bones burned. Every nerve ending in my body ignited with energy that felt too big for my skin. I heard screaming. Realized distantly it was me. The door to my room slammed open. Dominic was there, moving faster than should be possible, his face stark with panic. He dropped beside me, his hands hovering over my body like he wanted to touch me but was afraid he'd make it worse. Sarah, don't. The word came out wrong, layered. My voice and something else, something older and infinitely more dangerous. Don't touch me, because I could feel it building. This power that was waking up inside me, stretching after years of forced sleep. If he touched me now, if that bond flared with contact, I didn't know what would happen. I'm not leaving you. His voice was raw. Alpha command stripped away, leaving just the man. Just my mate. Whatever this is, we face it together. You rejected me. I know. His hands were shaking. I'd never seen Dominic shake before. I know, and I've regretted it every second since. But right now I need you to breathe. I need you to fight through whatever this is. Please, Sarah. The power crested. I felt it wash over me like a wave. Felt my wolf rise to meet it. Felt something fundamental shift in the fabric of who I was. When my vision cleared, Dominic was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen on his face. Fear. Not of me. For me. The distinction mattered. Your eyes, he whispered. They're gold? I guessed. Could feel it, the ancient power bleeding through my gaze, marking me as something other than the servant girl he'd thought he knew. Silver, gold. His voice cracked. Like moonlight, footsteps thundered up the stairs. The Alpha's voice boomed through the building, demanding answers, demanding order. But all I could focus on was Dominic's face, the way he was looking at me like I was something precious and terrifying and completely unknown. We need to go down there, I said. My voice was steady now, calm. The power had settled into my bones, still present but controlled. They're waiting for me. Serafina. The correction came automatically. Apparently that's my real name. I stood. My legs held, stronger than they'd been minutes ago. Everything felt sharper, clearer, like I'd been walking through life slightly out of focus and someone had finally adjusted the lens. Dominic rose with me, his hand moving to the small of my back before he caught himself. The almost touch hurt worse than contact would have. Don't, I said quietly. You don't get to protect me anymore. You gave up that right. Pain flashed across his face, but he stepped back, gave me space even though every line of his body screamed that he wanted to do the opposite. We walked down together. Him slightly behind me, a position that should have been wrong for an alpha but somehow wasn't. Not anymore. The crowd parted as we emerged from the building. Hundreds of wolves, all staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to fear to awe. I felt their alpha pressure pushing at me, testing this new power, trying to force submission. It rolled off me like water. My wolf didn't bow, didn't even acknowledge the challenge. We were beyond pack hierarchy now, beyond the rules that had governed my entire life. The woman from the helicopter stood in the center of the training grounds, tall, dark-skinned, with silver streaking through her black hair and eyes that had seen centuries. She was old, ancient, maybe, the kind of wolf that legends were made of. She saw me and dropped to one knee. Every warrior behind her followed suit. 40-some elite soldiers, kneeling for a servant girl in borrowed clothes. Princess Serafina, the woman said, her voice carrying across the silent compound. We have searched for you for 15 years. Your father charged us with your protection before he fell. We have failed in that duty, but we are here now to make it right. Princess. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. I felt Dominic's shock through the bond, felt the entire pack's reality shifting, reorganizing around this new information. The orphan was a princess. The servant was royalty. The rejected mate was so far above her alpha that the hierarchy had inverted. "My father," I said, my voice carrying with unnatural clarity. "You said he fell. Tell me what happened." The woman's face tightened with old grief. "Your father, King Alaric Nightshade, led the northern bloodline against the council's corruption. He was betrayed by those he trusted. Your mother, Queen Celeste, died defending you. With their last breaths, they sent you away with wolves they believed were loyal. Rogues," I whispered, understanding dawning like a slow, terrible sunrise. The rogues that crossed into Shadowcrest territory. They weren't attacking, they were running. "Yes, Princess. Running to your mother's childhood pack, seeking sanctuary. They died before they could explain why they carried a 3-year-old child of obvious noble blood." I turned to look at the alpha at Dominic's father, the man who'd found me clutching my dead parents' bodies, the man who'd called it mercy when he'd let me live. "You knew," I said. Not a question. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. "You knew I wasn't the child of rogues. You saw the quality of their clothing, their weapons, the way they fought. You knew." The alpha's face was stone. "I suspected. And you made me a servant anyway. It was safer." No apology in his voice, just cold calculation. "The council was hunting for Nightshade survivors. Hiding you in plain sight, making you forgettable. It kept you alive. It kept you safe," I corrected. "If the council discovered you were harboring a Nightshade heir, they would have destroyed your pack. So you buried the truth and made me scrub your floors." Silence, damning and absolute. My wolf was pushing at my control now, demanding dominance, demanding acknowledgement. I felt my power expanding, filling the space around me with pressure that made every wolf in the compound tense. The alpha's enforcers shifted nervously. Even the alpha himself took a subtle step back. Only Dominic held his ground. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read, part awe, part devastation, part something that looked dangerously like pride. Our eyes met across the space between us, and the bond flared so bright it was almost painful. Then his knees buckled. The future alpha of the Shadowcrest pack dropped to his knees before me. Not from command, not from force, but from the sheer weight of what I was, what I'd always been beneath the lie. Every wolf in the compound followed suit, a wave of submission that rippled outward, until hundreds of wolves knelt before a girl who'd been cleaning their floors yesterday. Except Dominic wasn't looking at me like they were. They knelt out of instinct, out of the primal response to superior bloodline power. He knelt like it was destroying him. "Sarah," he said, and my name in his mouth was a prayer and a confession and an apology all wrapped together. "I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't." "Does it matter?" I cut him off. "Would it have changed anything? Would you have chosen me if you'd known?" His silence was answer enough. The bond cracked wide open. Whatever fragile control we'd maintained over our connection, whatever walls the rejection had built, they shattered under the force of my awakened power. Suddenly I wasn't just feeling echoes of his emotion through a damaged bond. I felt everything. His regret, visceral and choking, a constant ache in his chest that he'd been living with for weeks. His love moon above, his love this vast and terrifying thing he'd been trying to bury under duty and responsibility. The way he saw me, strong and beautiful, and so far beyond him now that he'd never be able to bridge the gap. His fear of losing me forever, of watching me leave with these warriors and never looking back. And underneath it all, the truth he'd been too afraid to speak. The rejection had never been about me not being enough. It had been about him not being enough for me. "I never stopped choosing you," he whispered, and the words bled through the bond with the weight of absolute truth. "Every second of every day, I chose you. I just convinced myself I was choosing for you, protecting you from a mate who couldn't give you what you deserved." Tears burned behind my eyes. "That wasn't your choice to make." "I know." His voice broke. "I know that now. But you have to understand I'm not a good man, Sarah. I'm political and calculating, and I've spent my whole life putting pack before everything else. You deserved better than that. You deserved someone who could choose you first. Always. Without reservation. I never asked for better. The tears fell now, tracking hot down my cheeks. I just asked for you. He looked up at me with eyes full of devastation and desperate hope. And now? Now that you know what you are? Now that you have warriors kneeling at your feet and a kingdom waiting for you? Do you still want the alpha who rejected you? Who hurt you? Who was too blind and stupid to see what he had until it was too late? The training ground was silent. Every wolf watching this moment unfold. The ancient warrior. The alpha. The entire pack. Witnesses to the future Alpha brought to his knees by a mate bond he'd tried to destroy. I could feel my power humming under my skin, this vast and ancient thing that would let me command armies, topple kingdoms, reshape the world. I could walk away from this pack, from him, could claim my birthright and never look back. But I'd spent 15 years being powerless, being overlooked, being nothing. I was done letting other people make my choices for me. I stepped forward, closed the distance between us. Dominic's breath hitched as I reached down, my fingers brushing his jaw. The contact ignited the bond, sent it singing through both of us with painful intensity. You're right, I said softly. You're political and calculating, and you've spent your whole life putting pack first. You rejected me in front of everyone I've ever known. You broke my heart and then made me watch you pretend to love someone else. His eyes closed, pain written across every line of his face. But you also brought me tea when no one was watching, protected me even when you couldn't claim me, fought your own nature every second of every day because you thought you were doing right by me. My thumb brushed across his cheekbone, catching the single tear that had escaped. You're not a good man, Dominic Blackthorne, but you're mine, and I'm done pretending that changes anything. His eyes snapped open, gold and desperate, and full of desperate, fragile hope. Are you? His voice cracked, started again. Are you saying? I'm saying you're an idiot. I smiled through my tears. I'm saying you don't get to decide what I deserve. I'm saying that even with all this power, even with warriors waiting to take me to my kingdom, I choose you, because you're my mate, my horrible, self-sacrificing, utterly infuriating mate. Sarah. But, I interrupted, if you ever reject me again, if you ever make a decision about us without talking to me first, if you ever pull that martyr nonsense and try to protect me from yourself, I will use this power to make you regret it. Are we clear? The smile that broke across his face was incandescent. Crystal. Then he stood, pulled me against him, and kissed me like he'd been dying for it. The bond exploded between us, full and complete, and absolutely perfect. Every damaged piece knitting back together, every wound healing, every wall dissolving until there was nothing between us but pure, unfiltered connection. I tasted his love, his relief, his absolute certainty that he'd just been handed a miracle he didn't deserve. And he tasted mine. My forgiveness, my choice, my refusal to let him push me away ever again. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the entire pack was still kneeling, watching their future alpha claim his mate, his impossibly powerful, completely unsuitable, absolutely perfect mate. Well, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, I suppose we should talk about that political alliance with Alara Frost. Dominic's smile turned wicked. Already cancelled it. The second you said you were leaving, told my father the Northern Alliance could go to hell if it cost me you. And he agreed to that? We both looked at the alpha, who was still kneeling, his expression caught between fury and resignation. He didn't have much choice, Dominic said. Since I'd already decided that if you left, I was going with you. My heart clenched. You would have given up everything? Sarah. He cupped my face in his hands, his amber eyes burning with intensity. You are everything. The pack, the title, the responsibility, none of it means anything without you. I learned that the hard way. I'm not making that mistake twice. The ancient warrior cleared her throat. We'd almost forgotten she was there. "Princess Seraphina," she said, "we have much to discuss. Your kingdom needs you. Your people have waited 15 years for your return." I looked at her, at the kneeling warriors, at the pack that had been my prison and my home, at Dominic, who was watching me with complete trust, ready to support whatever choice I made. "Then they can wait a little longer," I said. "I have a mate bond to fix, and an alpha to properly claim. The kingdom can have me when I'm ready." I smiled at Dominic, felt his answering joy through the bond. "We do this together. No more sacrifices. No more choosing duty over each other. Whatever comes next, kingdoms or pacts or political nightmares, we face it as equals." "As equals," he agreed, then pulled me close and whispered against my ear, "My princess." The title should have felt strange, should have been too much, too soon. Instead, it felt like finally coming home. The pack didn't know what to do with me. I could see it in their faces as they slowly rose from their kneeling positions, the confusion, the fear, the desperate recalculation of everything they thought they knew. Yesterday I'd been invisible. Today I was standing in the center of their training grounds, with ancient warriors at my back and enough power radiating off me to make their wolves whimper. The Alpha Dominic's father recovered first, because of course he did. Decades of leadership had taught him to adapt quickly, to find advantage in chaos. "Princess Seraphina," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "The Shadowcrest pack welcomes you. We had no knowledge of your true heritage, but now that it's revealed, we are honored to—" "Stop." The single word came out layered with command, and I watched him actually flinch. "Don't insult both of us by pretending this is some happy revelation. You knew enough. You suspected enough. And you made your choice 15 years ago when you decided your safety mattered more than mine." His jaw tightened. "I kept you alive. You kept me useful. I let my power flex. Watched the pack wolves take an unconscious step back. There's a difference." Dominic's hand found the small of my back, not possessive, just present, a silent support that I felt echo through the bond. His father's eyes tracked the gesture, and something ugly flickered across his face. "The mate bond," the Alpha said slowly. "You've accepted it." "I've accepted him," I corrected. "The bond was never the question. Your son's choices were." I felt Dominic tense beside me, felt his shame and regret pulse through our connection. But he didn't defend himself, didn't make excuses, just stood there and waited for whatever judgment was coming. The pack elders were gathering now, drawn by the commotion. Old wolves with silver in their hair and centuries of tradition backing their authority. They formed a semicircle around us, their expressions grave. Elder Marcus spoke first. "This is unprecedented. A servant revealed as royalty, a rejected mate bond rekindled. The political implications alone are my problem," I interrupted. "Not yours. The northern bloodline answers to no pack. We are our own authority." "Nevertheless," Elder Kara said, her voice gentler, "you were wronged here. Protocol demands accountability." The word hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Accountability. For the Alpha who'd hidden my identity. For the pack that had treated me as lesser. For Dominic, who'd rejected me in front of everyone. I could feel the ancient warrior she'd introduced herself as Commander Lyra, waiting for my order. One word and she'd rain hell down on this pack. One word and I could watch them all pay for 15 years of servitude and humiliation. The old Sarah would have wanted that. Would have craved the vindication. But I wasn't that girl anymore. "Dominic," I said quietly. "Step forward." He moved immediately, putting himself between me and the elders, protecting me even now, even when he was the one on trial. "Not like that," I said. "Face them. Face what you did." Pain lanced through the bond, but he obeyed. Turned to face his pack, his father, the elders who'd watched him grow up. His spine was straight, his expression carefully blank. "I rejected my true mate," he said, his voice carrying across the silent training ground. "Not out of ignorance, but out of cowardice. I felt the bond. I knew what she was to me, and I chose pack politics over her because I convinced myself it was noble. that I was protecting her from a life of compromise and duty. He paused, swallowed hard. I was wrong. I hurt her in the worst way possible. Publicly, deliberately. And then I compounded that hurt by trying to claim her attention while courting another. I have no excuse, no justification. Whatever punishment the princess deems appropriate, I will accept without contest, the pack murmured. This kind of honesty from an alpha, especially the future alpha, was unheard of. Leaders didn't admit fault, didn't show weakness, but Dominic stood there, stripped of pretense, offering himself up for judgment. Elder Marcus looked at me. Princess, what would you have us do? I could demand anything, could have him stripped of his title, exiled from the pack, could watch him suffer the way he'd made me suffer. Nothing, I said. Shock rippled through the crowd. Nothing? Elder Kara repeated. But princess, the offense is between me and my mate. I met Dominic's eyes. Let him see that I meant it. What he did was wrong. How he hurt me was unforgivable by any standard. But my forgiveness isn't the pack's to grant or withhold. It's mine. And I've made my choice. The pack laws, Elder Marcus started, don't apply to me. I let my power flare, just enough to remind them all exactly what I was. I am not a member of the Shadowcrest pack. I never was, despite 15 years of service. I am the heir to the Northern bloodline, and the only authority I answer to is my own. I turned to Commander Lyra. How long until my kingdom expects me? The coronation is scheduled for the new moon, she said. 3 weeks. But if you need more time, 3 weeks is fine. I looked back at Dominic. That gives us time to settle things here first. His eyes widened slightly. Hope flickered through the bond, tentative and fragile. Settle things? The Alpha asked warily. I have questions, I said. About my parents. About what really happened 15 years ago. About why the council wanted my family dead, and whether that threat still exists. My gaze swept the elders, the pack, landing finally on the Alpha. And you're going to answer them. All of them. No more secrets. No more half-truths told for my own protection. And after? Dominic's father asked. After you have your answers? After, I go home. The word felt strange on my tongue. Home. I'd never had one before. I take my throne. I lead my people. I become what I was always meant to be. I felt Dominic's devastation spike through the bond before he could hide it. The assumption that I'd be leaving him behind, walking away from the pack and the mate who'd rejected me. I let him suffer for exactly 3 seconds before I reached back, laced my fingers through his. We go home, I corrected, squeezing his hand. Assuming my mate is willing to leave his pack behind and stand beside a queen instead of expecting her to stand behind an alpha. The hope that flooded through him was almost painful in its intensity. Sarah, you rejected me once, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You will never do it again. If we do this, if we accept this bond fully, it's as equals. I won't be the supportive mate, smiling from the sidelines while you lead. I won't compromise my power or my throne or my people for pack politics. Can you live with that? He turned to face me, and the love in his eyes was so naked, so raw, it took my breath away. I don't want you to compromise, he said. I don't want you standing behind me or beside me or anywhere other than exactly where you choose to stand. You're going to be a queen, Sarah, a real one, and I would be honored, fucking honored, to stand wherever you'll have me, even if it means giving up your pack, your title, everything you've trained your whole life for, especially then. His hand came up, cupped my face with a tenderness that made my chest ache. Because none of it matters without you. I learned that lesson the hard way. I'm not learning it twice. The pack was silent, watching their future alpha choose his mate over his birthright, watching their carefully ordered hierarchy collapse under the weight of a bond that refused to be denied. The alpha's face was stone. Dominic, you can't be serious. The pack needs... We'll be fine without me, Dominic interrupted, not taking his eyes off me. You have other sons, other heirs. Train one of them, because I'm done choosing duty over my mate. I'm done choosing politics over love. I'm done being the good son who sacrifices everything for pack stability. You're throwing away your future. No. Dominic's smile was soft, meant only for me. I'm finally choosing it. Commander Lyra cleared her throat. Princess, we should discuss logistics. Your security detail, the journey north, the coronation preparations. Later, I said, not breaking eye contact with Dominic. Right now, I need time with my mate, alone, to finish what we started. Understanding flickered across her face. Of course, Princess. We'll secure the perimeter and await your orders. The warriors moved with military precision, creating a protective barrier around the training grounds. The pack slowly dispersed, shooting backward glances, whispering among themselves. The elders retreated with obvious reluctance. Within minutes, it was just us. Dominic and me and 3 weeks' worth of pain and longing and words that needed to be said. He spoke first. I need to do this properly. He took both my hands, held my gaze with an intensity that made everything else fade away. I need you to understand, truly understand how sorry I am. Dominic, please, let me say this. His voice cracked slightly. I spent weeks telling myself the rejection was noble, that I was protecting you from a mate who couldn't put you first. But the truth is, I was protecting myself from the terror of loving you more than duty, more than pack, more than everything I'd been raised to value. You scared me, Sarah. The depth of what I felt for you, the way you made me want to burn down my whole life just to make you smile, it terrified me. Tears pricked my eyes. So you rejected me instead. So I rejected you instead, he agreed, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. And it was the biggest mistake of my life. Every second since then has been torture. Feeling you through the bond, wanting you, needing you, knowing I'd thrown away the most precious thing I'd ever been given because I was too afraid to fight for it. You fought your father, I pointed out, canceled the engagement, risked everything to come after me when I said I was leaving. Too late. His hands tightened on mine. All of it too late. After I'd already broken you. After I'd already proven I was exactly the coward I'd been trying not to be. You're not a coward. I rejected my mate in front of the entire pack, rather than stand up to political pressure. What would you call that? Human, I said softly. Flawed, scared, but not a coward. Because you're here now, offering to give up everything for me. That takes courage. It's not courage when it's the only choice that matters. He released one of my hands to brush his fingers along my jaw, that familiar gesture that had always meant so much. I love you, Sarah. I loved you when you were a servant scrubbing my floors. I loved you when you stood in that isolation room and told me to leave. I loved you when you decided to walk away from me. And I love you now, standing here as a princess with enough power to level this entire compound if you wanted to. My breath hitched. You never said it before. The words, I was afraid they'd make it real. Make it impossible to do what I thought I had to do. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But you're right. I don't get to make decisions for you. For us. So here it is. All of it. As real as I can make it. I love you. I choose you. I will spend the rest of my life proving that you weren't wrong to give me a second chance I absolutely don't deserve. Dominic, I'm not done. His voice dropped lower, more intense. I know I have no right to ask this. I know I've done nothing to earn it, but I'm asking anyway. Will you accept me, fully? Will you let me stand beside you as your mate? Not because fate decided we belong together, but because you choose me the way I'm choosing you? This was it. The moment everything came down to. I could feel the bond humming between us, waiting, hoping, desperate for my answer. I could punish him more, make him suffer for the rejection, make him earn every scrap of my forgiveness. But I was tired of suffering, tired of pain, tired of letting fear and hurt dictate my choices. I choose you, I said, and watched his expression shatter with relief. Not because the bond demands it, not because you're offering to give up everything for me, but because when I look at you, even after everything, even with all this power I've just discovered, I still see my mate. The man who brought me tea and looked at me like I mattered. The man who's learning, finally, that love isn't weakness and choosing your mate isn't betrayal. Sera, but hear me, Dominic Blackthorne. I let my power flare. Let him feel the full weight of what I'd become. You rejected me once. You will never, never do it again. You will never make decisions about us without me. You will never sacrifice our bond for duty or politics, or noble self-sacrifice. You will never pull away when things get hard, because I'm not the powerless servant anymore. I'm your equal, your partner, your queen. And I expect to be treated as such. Always, he breathed. I swear it. On my life, on my wolf, on everything I am, I will never reject you again. Then he kissed me, not tentative, not questioning, but with the absolute certainty of a man who'd found his home and was never letting it go. The bond blazed between us, fully accepted now, complete and perfect, and absolutely unbreakable. I felt his love pouring through it, his relief, his joy, his utter devotion, and he felt mine, my forgiveness, my choice, my refusal to let him push me away ever again. When we broke apart, both of us were crying. I love you, he whispered against my lips. My mate, my princess, my queen. I love you too, I whispered back. My alpha, my partner, my impossible, infuriating mate. We stood there for a long moment, foreheads pressed together, just breathing each other in, letting the bond settle, stronger now than it had ever been, letting the future crystallize around us, complicated and uncertain, and absolutely worth fighting for. 3 weeks, I said eventually. 3 weeks to prepare, to get answers, to say goodbye to this place. And then we go north, to my kingdom, to our future. I smiled against his mouth. Together, he agreed. And for the first time in weeks, the weight in my chest lifted completely. 3 weeks later, the coronation was beautiful. Ancient stone hall filled with wolves from every bloodline. Ceremony passed down through generations. Commander Lyra placing the silver crown on my head while my people knelt in respect and loyalty. I stood there in ceremonial robes, feeling the weight of my heritage settle onto my shoulders, and thought about the girl who'd been scrubbing floors 3 weeks ago. She'd been so small, so powerless, so convinced she deserved the scraps the world threw her. I wasn't that girl anymore. Princess Seraphina Nightshade, the High Priestess intoned, her voice carrying through the hall. Last of the royal line, do you accept the responsibility of the Northern Throne? Do you swear to lead your people with wisdom, strength, and compassion? I do. Then rise, not as princess, but as queen. I stood. The hall erupted in howls, the traditional wolf celebration, hundreds of voices joining in a chorus that made the ancient stones shake. And through it all, through the ceremony and the celebration and the weight of a crown I'd never expected to wear, I felt Dominic's presence through the bond. Steady, supportive, proud. He stood among my people now, not as the future alpha he'd been born to be, but as my mate, my partner, the man who'd learned to kneel before he learned to stand beside me. The feast afterward was loud and long, full of wolves celebrating their queen's return. I smiled and talked and accepted congratulations from nobles I'd never met who acted like I'd always been royalty, instead of a secret they'd failed to protect. But all I wanted was to escape. Finally, as the moon rose high overhead, I slipped away from the celebration, found my way to the private gardens behind the palace, ancient and wild and absolutely perfect. Dominic found me there within minutes, because of course he did. The bond meant he always knew where I was, just like I always knew where he was. Tired of being queen already? He asked, settling onto the stone bench beside me. Tired of being on display, I corrected. I'll get used to the queen part, eventually. His arm came around my shoulders, pulling me against his side. I went willingly, tucking myself into his warmth. You were magnificent, he said quietly. Watching you up there, wearing that crown, commanding respect from wolves who could have crushed you 3 weeks ago, I've never been more proud, or more terrified of how far above me you are now. I laughed softly, You're my mate. You're never going to be above or below me. We're equals, remember? Equals. He tested the word, and I felt his wonder through the bond. A queen and her consort. A queen and her mate, I corrected. I don't need a consort. I need a partner. Someone who'll challenge me when I'm wrong and support me when I'm right, and love me through all of it. I can do that. His lips brushed my temple. I will do that, every day for the rest of our lives. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the moon track across the sky. The same moon that had witnessed my rejection. The same moon that had watched me break and rebuild and finally choose myself. Do you ever regret it? Dominic asked eventually. Forgiving me? Bringing me with you? You could have had anyone, Sarah. Any wolf in any pack would have died for the honor of standing beside you. I don't want anyone, I said simply. I want you. The man who learned that love isn't weakness, that choosing your mate isn't betrayal, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is kneel before someone you love. I'll never reject you again, he said, and the bond pulsed with the truth of it. Never doubt you. Never make you feel less than the miracle you are. I know. And I did. Could feel his certainty through the bond, absolute and unshakable. Because if you did, I'd use this power to make you regret it. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Terrifying and beautiful. How did I get so lucky? You didn't. I tilted my head to look up at him, let him see my smile. You made a choice. To be better. To be worthy. To fight for us even when it meant giving up everything else. That wasn't luck. That was love. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. The bond sang between us, complete and unbroken and absolutely perfect. When we finally pulled apart, the moon was high overhead, bathing the gardens in silver light. Come on, I said, standing and pulling him with me. We should get back before someone sends a search party. Let them search. But he stood anyway, kept my hand in his as we walked back toward the palace. I'm not sharing you with anyone else tonight. My queen deserves some privacy. Your queen, I repeated, testing the words, liking how they sounded. My queen, he confirmed. My mate, my everything. And as we walked into our future complicated and challenging and absolutely worth fighting for, I thought about the girl who'd been rejected in front of her pack. She'd survived. She'd learned she was a princess. She'd become a queen. But more than any of that, she'd learned to choose herself. And that made all the difference. He rejected me once. He will never do it again. Thank you for listening to another emotional, magical shifter romance here on Tina Romance Library. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, so you never miss more powerful, heart-gripping romance stories.